If your politician, if your local Democrat will not call for the removal of the filibuster, if they will not call out Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, don't vote for them. Do not donate for them. It's time to get rid of Milquetoast Dems.
There is no explicit mention of a right to abortion in the Constitution. So the question is, was it somehow granted by the 14th Amendment? And he says the test for that is it has to be deeply rooted in the nation's history and traditions and part of a concept of ordered liberty. And he says it flunks that test. Well, of course, same-sex marriage would flunk that test, too. There was no protection for contraception at the founding. So by the court's logic here, those precedents could be in danger. Several of the justices go out of their way to say, no, it won't make any difference. Justice Kavanaugh says in his concurrence today, overruling Roe does not mean the overruling of those precedents and does not, he emphasizes the word not, threaten or cast doubt on those precedents. So I think, take them at their word, but there is certainly, you could argue
take them at their word. They're proven liars. What do you mean?
All right, Pete, thank you. And on that right side of your screen, you continue to view the protests, the celebrations. How you describe them really depends on where people are. But clearly a lot of emotion has spilled out on the steps of the Supreme Court after this historic ruling. The court overturned.
This is the same shit we've always seen. There's no escalation from the left. This is the same shit. I've seen the same shit in every fucking usurpation. There's no difference. They're the same. It's the same flaccid sloganizing. That's it. Fucking worthless.
Days before the clinic is closed.
Don't overturn those fences. God forbid a fence fell over. Oh no. Everybody stand in the free speech zone. Everyone stand exactly where it's your plan to be. Everybody stand there. Posture for the cameras, everybody. Posture for the cameras.
Especially,
don't you do anything to those pro-life people celebrating right next to you. Don't you dare. Respect them. Respect them as they say a rape baby should be forced on every victim. Respect them as they say an 11-year-old incest victim should have her body destroyed by a pregnancy, forced on her by a predator. Just respect them, chat. Respect them as they say that people should be thrown in prison for giving women control over their own bodies. Respect them. Make sure that your bullhorn is charged.
I think it's probably a 7-hour drive or something to the closest clinic. New Mexico is about a 10-hour drive. Massachusetts, is a 22-hour drive. There's always the option of getting pills through the mail, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be seeking.
They're going to try to ban that. They're already moving to ban that.
I'm also sure the state will make that illegal, but maybe hard to enforce. So, those will be the options. Basically,
are you hearing from?
So awesome! Oh my gosh! I can't believe they just did it. This is so amazing. I'm trying not to cry. So awesome. Oh my gosh. I can't believe they just did it.
I want you to understand that when you're a Republican, when you're a right-wing demon, your party is going to give you a lot of pieces of red meat. I can't remember the last time I got a bowl of thin gruel from the Democratic Party. I can't remember the last time I was like, wow, what a good move. What? Yeah, I guess, when they passed the COVID relief bill, I was like, okay, well, there's some good things about it. It's not that bad. Why does Joe Biden want to be president? I mean,
for the president's
okay, you're in the history books now. Is your ego, can you retire now?
In some form.
So I want to get the terminology right. Abortion is not illegal, but it is no longer a constitutional right. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct, Lester. This is not a ban, a total ban on abortion that's been decided by the Supreme Court. What this does is it changes the approach to abortion. It says that women no longer have a fundamental constitutional right to make the decision regarding terminating their pregnancy at any stage of the pregnancy. That is no longer a protected right under the U.S. Constitution. And what that does is it throws the decision back to each individual state. So each state legislature, under its own state constitution, makes the decision whether a woman has access to an abortion and all the parameters around that decision, at what stage of the abortion, or whether there's a ban on abortions in that state entirely. That is now an issue for each state legislature.
Stepping away from whatever side you may fall on, the fact that the Supreme Court has now taken away a right that it had originally granted, can you talk to the significance of that legally?
You know, Lester, this has to be a co-equal headline in.
Here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I would recommend that you do. You support somebody like John Fetterman, who is a progressive left-wing Democrat who actually proposes overturning the filibuster, who actually points his finger at Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema as a problem and isn't a piece of shit. But other than that, if your politician, if your local Democrat will not call for the removal of the filibuster, if they will not call out Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, don't vote for them. Do not donate to them. It's time to get rid of Milquetoast Dems. They are the... Yeah, Republicans are bad. I want to beat Republicans. But if the Milquetoast Dems enable them, then they don't matter. They're just as much of a fucking problem. It's time to get rid of them. So they really think it is murder now, how they will allow some states to murder people? Is it the logical conclusion a nationwide ban or to keep it legal? Yes, that's a logical conclusion. But they didn't have the... I mean, I guess they felt like they didn't have the political ability to do something like that. I'm sorry, I muted the thing. Those other rights don't involve a life. Does the logic follow there, or when you start taking that piece by piece, does it become a harder argument he makes? And by the way, is that door still open, no matter what he may say about that? Is that door still open to go back and revisit these other rights?
Exactly what you said right now, Lester. That door is still open because Justice Alito said this both in the leaked draft that was leaked in May and this opinion. He said, oh, this applies only to abortion. It doesn't apply to those other decisions. That is what is known as dicta. That in legal circles, that's known as dicta, which means that is saying something that is not essential to the holding of this case. And when it is not essential to the holding of the case, it has no binding precedential value. So Justice Alito might be trying to make this go down a little bit easier, but the logic of his opinion, as Justice Thomas has pointed out, is that these cases are now vulnerable, these other rights.
Does this ever go back before the court? Is there a case that could reopen the door on this ultimate decision?
What's the point?
It would require what happened in this case. It would require a case being teed up, and a case is not going to be teed up
until there are a bunch of pro-abortion judges.
Until the side that tees it up thinks that it has the votes to
overturn
make
it.
the revisiting happen, and that is likely not to happen for a long time.
All right, Carol Lamb, thanks for walking us through some of that. We appreciate it.
That is the landscape that we're in at this moment in time. What we should be looking for, right? In addition to next month, what Congress is going to do, what specific actions they will take, because right now, and you heard it a little bit.
The reason why they're saying what Congress will do next month is because Congress is on vacation, and because the Democrats control the House and the Senate, they have the ability to do what's known as set the legislative calendar. And so they decided that they knew when the Supreme Court would likely be releasing decisions. They decided that they were going to be on vacation when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. And they've decided they're not going to cut their vacation short. Now, I don't know if you know it, but it's June, and in a couple weeks is 4th of July. So they're having a vacation all the way through the 4th of July holiday. So we're talking about probably close to 3-4 weeks before any Democrat shows up in D.C. Now, they could decide to end their vacation early, but, you know, Kyrsten Sinema has a wine tasting tour or something, so they're not going to do that.
Would not be open to changing that framework. You asked, does this change the game? I'm looking at a response from Senator Joe Manchin, for example, who has been, as you well know, one of the thorns in the side.
It's a ruling that says states have the right to regulate abortion and the federal government can't intervene. It's an absolute lunacy to pretend that these justices will let their decades-long project to end an abortion in America get excited because Congress passed a law that they wouldn't just immediately overturn. I know you really want this to be the lib's fault, but go fuck yourself. I mean, so what you're saying there is, first of all, if the Supreme Court did that, it would be good. It would be good because my ultimate project is to pack the Supreme Court or delegitimize the Supreme Court. I want them to take more and more radical steps so that libs get off their fucking ass and realize that these institutions are bad. And in the meantime, abortion rights would be protected. It would have to go spend the year or two to go through the Supreme Court again. And then they would have to expand that to something they heretofore have no precedential history to draw on. It would be a naked assertion of power. It would delegitimize them further while protecting abortion rights now, you dummy. It's still worth doing, dummy. And yes, it is the libs' fault. It is the libs' fault.
Certainly, I think Democrats are going to make this a political issue. Democrats want to run on this. They would certainly, for practical political reasons, like to use it to avoid conversations about things like the economy, about inflation, about some of the other things that have.
If you're wondering why this decision even matters, this is why. May 14th, 2019, President Obama drawn into abortion bait in a debate he hoped to avoid. He had 60 senators, chat. He had 60 senators. He had the House. He wanted to move beyond the culture wars without winning them. Mr. Obama's communication advisor, Anita Dunn, said in an interview that the president was likely to make reference to the controversy. You can't ignore it, but at the same time, you can't allow it to become the focus of a day that's actually supposed to be about the graduates. These fucking worthless cowards. By the way, Anita Dunn did pro bono work for Harvey Weinstein and is now... she is considered to be the frontline candidate to become Joe Biden's chief of staff. If you don't know who this is. What a loser. What a loser. What a fucking loser.
That's what we're fighting for. So no matter what you believe, we're here to protect. But
hey, we're going to interview more pro-life people. Both sides, chat. Both sides.
Down just after 10
Both sides.
I'm still right in the middle of it, just outside, in front of the Supreme Court. And what I have noticed, while we've seen a mix of opinions, it is a plurality of young people. And I want to bring in Nina. She traveled in from Pennsylvania, and she was one of the people that was celebrating the decision being overturned. And so, Nina, I want to ask you, what drove you to come out here today? What are you looking for? And tell me a little bit about how you're feeling now that we saw the decision come down.
Well, as you can see, I'm very excited. I drove down here for Students for Life. We have a bunch of collectives and leadership programs focused on making sure women have the necessary resources that they need throughout their pregnancy. And I'm excited, but we all, as if you can see the celebration, but we all know this is not where the work ends. This is where it begins, because from anyone you can ask, this is what we'll be working for the rest of our lives, to make abortion illegal, unthinkable, and unnecessary.
And our NBC polling has shown that 60% of women think, or 60% of Americans think that abortion should be legal in some capacity. 30% are on the other side of it. What do you make that your group is kind of in the minority on this? And what do you want to say to other people who don't share the same opinions as you?
I mean, there's a lot to, obviously, there's a lot of nuances, a lot of different opinions, but at the end of the day, human rights begin at conception, they end at natural death, and that's what we're fighting for. So no matter what you believe, we're here to protect the woman and the child.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And so, Lester, like we just talked about,
I think to be a journalist, you have to be profoundly stupid
right now, but we do
and
hear
morally
a
depraved.
lot of celebration and music
in my opinion,
playing here today.
You have to be profoundly stupid and morally depraved. I don't know.
We're necessarily expecting this to come down today. Most people that I've talked to were thinking that it was going to be early next week that this decision would come, and so it is interesting to see as the crowd continues to grow now that the decision has come through. And we'll continue to talk to people on the ground, especially as we know that the president had previously said prior to the decision coming down that he was hoping that Congress would take action to restore Roe. We have heard rumblings about House Democrats coming down, and we'll keep an eye out for lawmakers that are here as well, Lester.
Okay, Maura, thank you for the update there from the steps of the Supreme Court reaction.
But this is a really stark moment in America and a huge setback for every generation younger than me, who now will have fewer rights than my generation.
By the way, Joe Biden not speaking, not prepared.
You've got a Republican
Joe Biden not prepared. Not prepared. You know? Just I guess he's not speaking ever. I guess maybe he's waiting for prime time. What's happening?
Do you think this changes the equation of the midterms as we march toward November?
You know what? I know that 70% of people in Michigan support.
Oh my God! The fucking midterms. What? The Democrats have power already. Wait, they're gonna win. Wait, vote for us so we can fail again. How many people do we need to win? Who do we need to replace? Are you going to get rid of the filibuster? What, we're going to win 15 new seats? Just loser shit.
Time for us.
Thank you.
Joining us now is NBC News political director and Meet the Press moderator Chuck Todd. And I'll just ask you the same question I asked the governor there. Is this going to change the equation of the midterms? Democrats would clearly like it to.
So abortion is illegal.
But what's the likelihood
now
of that happening?
I think it really is state dependent. And I say this and meaning, you know, let me give you an example. Nevada is one of the big battleground states in 2022. Abortion rights is enshrined in that state constitution. The Republican nominee for the Senate has already talked about, hey, it's enshrined in the Constitution, no debate here. I'm not saying you won't see Nevada Democrats want to, you know, fire up Democrats on the issue of abortion, but it is good. You're going to hear, you know, it is not at risk in Nevada. But Michigan and Wisconsin, it is going to be front and center, particularly in the governor's races in both of those places because of those trigger laws. And it really, so the political fallout to this, look, I think it's certainly going to help the Democrats find a way to sort of to fire up the Democratic base and fire up people on this issue. Sort of what I would say is it's not going to level the enthusiasm playing field. The right's fired up right now, believing they have a chance at winning a control of Congress, pushing back against Biden. The economy, the shaky economy that we're in right now with inflation, they certainly have those advantages. But I think this is a beginning of a leveling of the playing field, if you will, politically on the activism front and on the enthusiasm front. But again, I think it is more acute in places like Michigan and Wisconsin. And here's another thing, Lester, to think about. You know, so for the longest time, politicians, elected officials have been able to duck specifics on the abortion issue. They've simply said, I'm for Roe or I'm against Roe. If anything, it would be the Democrats that would get sort of wedged. Well, what about late-term abortions? Is it 20 weeks? Is it 24 weeks? But there was not a debate on that front, and the Republicans didn't have to think about those nuances. Well, now sort of the roles are going to be reversed, and every candidate for every elective office for a legislative body is going to have to get specific. Okay, what are you open to? And that's where I think you're going to see probably more divides on the right than on the left. And you're going to see a lot of, look what we've seen with the gun debate.
What left?
Into gun regulations, and the former president called him a rhino. If you're an elected Republican and you wanted Roe overturned, but you believe there still should be access to abortion, is that politically feasible in this Republican Party today? And those are the type of potential wedging and political fallout here. I think the political consequences of this that I think you will see play out. I think that Republicans are not as unified at banning all abortions as the judiciary, that the conservative judges are pushing, or even some of the most hardcore sort of elected state legislators are pushing. But are they going to sort of run and hide on this? And are those divides going to sort of roil Republican Party politics in a way that we haven't seen before? So I just think that that's among the political consequences. Look, there's a lot of consequences to that, but just on the political side of it, that's one I'm focused on.
Yeah, and Chuck, we've already heard some Democrats trying to whip up folks with the idea that it may not stop here, that gay marriage could be back up for another consideration. Now, Justice Alito tried to address that in the opinion, saying, well, those other things don't involve a life. But is that going to be a genuine fear? And it is one, do you think, that Democrats will go to try and animate the base?
Oh, I think Clarence Thomas just handed them that opportunity, because in his concurring opinion, He put Griswold.
Did you? I mean, why do you have this guy coming on to talk about politics? A law professor was just on the same network explaining that, according to the logic of the majority's opinion, all those other opinions are at risk, and any statement within the judgment that said, "Oh, but don't worry about other stuff," was dicta, because that's not central to the holding of the case, the logic of the case. Shut the fuck up, cucktod. We get a different network.
I think it's going to be a legitimate fear that those on the left bring up, because again, they're not making it up. Justice Thomas wrote it in his concurring opinion, and so I think it will be.
Left-wing
and there
protests?
will be some state legislatures. I believe Idaho.
Wow, suddenly they know it. Wow, they're prepared.
On contraception.
Suddenly they're prepared.
And I think that is where I think this is going to
suddenly they're prepared.
Conservative primary politics in ways.
Suddenly they're prepared. Suddenly, wow, it's so odd that the Capitol Police are available with riot shields and equipment for a left-wing protest. What a surprise!
That I don't think we fully appreciate just yet.
All right, Chuck, let me go back to Pete Williams, if I can. Pete's got some more information for us.
Yes, a couple of things, Lester. First of all, on that question of the Supreme Court decision today casting doubt on other precedents like contraception, like same-sex marriage, the dissenters say today, you know, the majority can't have it both ways. Either the logic of their decision, the dissenters say, this is the opinion that the three of them wrote together, either the logic is that a right has to be deeply rooted in the tradition, or the words of their dissent, don't worry, this won't count. It's one way or the other, and they say this is hypocritical. The majority tells us not to worry, they say, but either the mass of the opinion is hypocrisy or additional constitutional rights are under threat. It can't be both. It's one or the other. Also, Lester, Attorney General Merrick Garland is out with a statement today. He says the Justice Department strongly disagrees with the decision. It's a long statement, but I think the key part of it is this. He says women who reside in states that have banned access to comprehensive reproductive care must remain free to seek care in states where it's legal. And he also says under First Amendment principles, people must remain free to inform and counsel each other about the reproductive care that's available in other states. And indeed, one of the things that the dissenters say here, Lester, is there's nothing in today's decision to prevent states from doing that. They worry that it's something that states might do. And the dissenters also say, you know, there's nothing in today's decision, while the majority speaks of leaving this up to the states and returning this issue to the states. That's sort of how Justice Alito frames his decision. The dissent say there's nothing in this decision that would prevent Congress from banning abortion nationwide, Lester.
All right, Pete, thank you.
All right, chat. One of our few leaders is actually calling for something. AOC has gone to the foot of the Capitol. Unfortunately, the only people posting it are TPUSA supporters. But hey, at least she's there. Imagine if we had a single fucking Democrat besides AOC with balls or gonads.
And we need to be really blowing up our elected officials' offices. And we
Chad, I had a post that I want you all to see said, I should have voted for Jill Stein in 2016. I really regret that I voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. It was a big mistake. In Pennsylvania here, I voted for Hillary Clinton, and that was a political error on my part. I should have voted for Jill Stein in 2016. Big mistake. Big mistake. I'll have to live with the shame of voting for Hillary Clinton for the rest of my life. But one day I will have done this. Oh, and by the way, chat, here, you know, you should go to my Twitter account and follow it and everything, and fuckwits vote for Jill. I mean, didn't make a difference, did it? Voted for Hillary, who cares? Didn't matter. Yeah, everyone, you should go to my Twitter and follow it and just and enjoy a little bit of shit posting. I'm doing a little bit of trolling. I'm doing a little bit of shit posting. You should go and like my tweets. They're pretty good. They're pretty good.
In the midterms, for sure, that their candidates need to be elected in order to reverse this.
Yeah, Yamish, thank you very much. Want to let our viewers know some of you will be leaving us here to join your midday local news. Others will continue the coverage here on NBC News.
They only responded force when it's not the right protesting. Isn't that odd? Here's some,
it is noon here on the East Coast. If you were just
there's some more info that you should probably know, chat. Louisiana Attorney General says trigger law banning abortion in state is in effect. Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry issued a statement on the Supreme Court's decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Louisiana is one of 13 states with trigger laws that take effect after the court's decision. As noted in both my legal brief to the Supreme Court and the majority's opinion, the Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision, according to his statement. Because of the court's ruling in this case about a Mississippi law limiting abortions after 15 weeks of gestation, with exceptions for health emergencies and fetal abnormalities, Louisiana's trigger law banning abortion is now into effect, he said. My office and I will do everything in our power to ensure the laws of Louisiana that have been passed to protect the unborn are enforceable, even if we have to go back to court, his statement continued.
Trans people next. Woo.
So if you are in Louisiana and you are an abortion provider or somebody who works in that industry, you are now under threat of criminal prosecution. If you guys have any other like representatives or people that have reacted on other networks, we've been watching NBC this morning. That would be nice to see if you could link
the
those
law
to me.
that brought this issue to the Supreme Court. Mississippi's law that would ban abortion after 15 weeks. So it's the court upheld that law and by
my
a
voice is not loud enough.
Overturned Roe v. Wade.
It really feels like the levels are higher on my voice.
This doesn't make abortion illegal nationwide. It simply removes, and I say simply, it removes the constitutional protection for abortion. There's no longer a constitutional right to abortion, according to the Supreme Court. This is the first time in history that the Supreme Court has ever granted a right that is widely recognized and then taken away. It's technically speaking not the first time the court has ever granted a right and taken it away, but it's the first time it's ever done that for a right that had widespread public support and was widely recognized. So it's now up to the states to decide whether to make abortion illegal, and by our count, roughly half the states will do so. 13 of those states already have laws on the book, so-called trigger laws, that make abortion illegal if the court ever were to overturn Roe and Casey. Missouri is already the first of the states to take that action. As of today, the Attorney General of Missouri says abortion is now illegal in that state.
Sorry, I plugged in
the majority
my,
opinion was written by Justice
dying.
Samuel Alito. It closely tracks with the leaked opinion that came out in May that was actually drafted in February that said Roe was egregiously wrong, that there's no constitutional right to abortion in the Constitution, and the only way a constitutional right can be derived from the Constitution's 14th Amendment if it is deeply rooted in the nation's history and traditions and part of the
reversal of Roe will be recorded in the history of books as the same nauseous tones as decisions like Dred Scott, Koromastu, Plessy, and Buck. This is an institution that has legitimized slavery, concentration camps, and eugenics. This decision is the same. We claim we live in a democracy, a form of government that does not just do the will of the people, but protects the rights of the people. There are times we have lived up to our ideals, and there are many, many times when we haven't, like this. How can a society function when the ultimate word on the rights of citizens, the rights of blacks to be free from bondage and later to vote as equals, or of Japanese Americans to not be herded into camps, or the rights of women to not be forced to give birth, are decided by 9 unelected lawyers serving decade after decade with as much of a political agenda as my most partisan colleagues in the House? Because make no mistake, SCOTUS is as much a political body as the House or Senate. We just pretend it's above all that. Like every case I've named before, overturning Roe proves it's not. The court's majority is serving its purpose. Minnesotans, we are lucky to have Tim Walz and Keith Ellison in office to protect our rights at home. If Republicans win in November, Minnesota will look a lot like Texas. As we fight to make abortion illegal at the federal level, I continue to reject the legitimacy of such an undemocratic institution. Expand the court. Why is, I mean, the only people that have any kind of clue at what we should be doing are the squad. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders just put out a tweet. I didn't read it to you, Chad. I retweeted it on the other screen. I should read it to you. He says, okay, this is his personal account. It's his Bernie Sanders Senate account, I believe is the one. He said, overturning Roe v. Wade and denying women the right to control their own bodies is an outrage and a defiance of what the American people want. Democrats must now end the filibuster in the Senate, codify Roe v. Wade, and once again make abortion legal and safe. I think we talked about Senator Markey last night, or yesterday, if you weren't here. He's the senator from Massachusetts. He just tweeted something. He just said, the Supreme Court has overruled Roe v. Wade, executing a decades-long far-right plot to destroy the constitutional right to abortion and forever eroding any semblance of legitimacy the stolen court once held. There can be no question that we must expand the Supreme Court. Today's decision will have devastating and dangerous impacts across our nation, but let me be clear, the right to a safe and legal abortion is still protected in Massachusetts. Are you watching the stream unsubbed? You're making income inequality worse. You are doing anti-praxis. We are the only Twitch stream that will not accept scam advertisers, and I will never fuck you over by selling you crap